Ladies, gentlemen, boys, girls, innies, outies and in-betweeners. My name's Dan and welcome back to another PAP Reports. It's Thursday, May the 28th, 2020. Cambridgshire police descended on a gathering in the Paston area of Peterborough on Monday the 25th of May after reports of 7 or 8 cars and 20 to 30 people gathering on a road for a lockdown rave. Upon arrival at the scene, police were greeted by what they described as hundreds more people than they thought, and decided that even though dozens of police attended, they had insufficient numbers to deal with the gathering and safely move people on. See the difference large amounts of people make? There were reports of one person being injured by a vehicle after someone suffered minor injuries, and the ambulance service was called. There was also a call later in the evening after people had started leaving the area that someone had been stabbed. However, police nor ambulance staff could find a victim, and it's reported that no one presented themselves to the hospital with stab injuries. Just after 1 AM, the majority of people had left the area. About half an hour later, the music was turned off and everyone had left. Police remained at the location until about 4 AM and have said that they will be carrying out patrols of the area throughout the week. Superintendent Adam Gallop from Cambridgeshire Police said, "We understand local residents were concerned and some were frightened by the large gathering last night. We will be conducting inquiries in the area over the coming days, so residents may notice an increased presence. We will also be conducting patrols in the area to prevent any further similar incidents." He said there is a line between organising community events to build morale in this challenging time and the events of last night, which very clearly were not acceptable. The local policing teams will continue to work with all of our communities to advise, guide and where necessary enforce guidance and legislation. We are investigating the source of the gathering and how it came to be of such a scale. Where any offences have been committed, we will take action, but due to the scale of the event and the number of inquiries we need to carry out, this could take some time. Now, I haven't seen any reports of people actually making complaints about the gathering other than the initial reports of people gathering. So I think maybe the police statement about people being frightened is another one of their discretionary additions to the report. But I think it shows just how different a situation can be based on the amount of people that are attending. To say that the event was not acceptable and then also say that you did nothing about it because there was too many people doesn't really make any sense to me. But I think it does show people that are watching this video the difference that large numbers of people can make to a situation. On Tuesday, it was said by many of the mainstream media outlets that Matt Hancock said he would review fixed penalty notices given out to those people who received them while seeking childcare. I said yesterday that he didn't actually say that at all. In fact, he only said that he would look at it with his Treasury colleagues after a vicar from Brighton asked the question during a daily press conference. Well, it appears that government sources later clarified that there would be no review of fines issued under the coronavirus regulations. By May the 11th, 13,445 fixed penalty notices had been handed out in England and 799 in Wales. These included a man in Leicestershire being stopped on a motorway who explained to police he was travelling home to London after visiting a sick relative in Nottinghamshire. Civil liberties campaigners say there is no consistency in how the rules have been applied and are calling for a review of the unjust fines. Liberty human rights groups said such broad police powers and vague government guidance are a recipe for discrimination and injustice, which is why Liberty, along with many other groups, have been calling for a review. It is now clear, they say, how unevenly the powers have been applied, particularly when, as recent events show, they don't apply to the very people who wrote them. Kirsty Brimlow, QC, a barrister at Doherty Street Chambers, said, in light of Mr Cummings' actions being upheld by the government as legal and within both law and guidance, there needs to be an official review of these fines. If Mr Cummings' actions amounted to a reasonable excuse, including his test drive or day trip, how does this affect those convicted who might have put forward similar reasons? Ms Brimlow encouraged those who have been issued with fines to seek further guidance. Something we've been saying on this channel for a while. They call me stupid, but today I've realised something that I've overlooked recently. Now, unfortunately, I don't have the privilege of time when dealing with stories for these reports, by which I spend as much time as I can gathering the information, but afterwards, unless it comes up again, I don't have the time to revisit and think about those stories. This has led me to not see something that I think is very important. I'm sure many of you have noticed this yourself, but it didn't actually click for me until today. The new track and trace app went live this morning for the masses. This means that from today, anyone who gets a call from the NHS must self-isolate, even if they don't have coronavirus symptoms. Health Secretary Matt Hancock said anyone with coronavirus will have their contacts traced in a bid to control the spread of COVID-19 and help ease lockdown. Now, when I heard this before, it didn't click in my mind, but now it has. And if it hasn't clicked for you yet, then let me explain my point. You don't need the app installed on your phone to be affected by this. This app has access to the device it's installed on, but using GPS and Wi-Fi, it will indicate people using the data on that device to gather the contact details of those who come within range of it and pass that info on to, supposedly, the NHS. But think about it. Most people will generally come into contact with pretty much the same people every day or week as part of a pattern. So after, let's say, a couple of weeks, they won't really be coming into contact with many new people to track and trace. So how are they going to be making this work? The only way to make this really work and be meaningful is to make the device of the identified person, the person who came into contact with someone with the track and trace app, transmit data as well. Now, if people refuse to install the app, which I certainly think they should, as I will not be giving up personal information of people I know without permission, then the only way to make this work is for the app to somehow attach itself in some way to the other person's phone, a hidden app of some description, which will secretly install and transmit data of your contacts. I can't see any other way of making this invasion of privacy a meaningful exercise. I mean, I'm no expert on the matter, so if anyone out there knows about these things, please do let me know in the comments. Hancock said test and trace was a national effort and we all have a role, and he warned while initially the measures would be voluntary, they could be made mandatory if that's what it takes. Which will certainly see me leave my mobile phone at home when I go out. As I said previously, I sure as shit won't be allowing personal details of my friends and family to be shared without their consent, and I don't want mine shared either. He said we must all follow the NHS test and trace instructions because this is how we control the virus. I wonder how they used to do it before we had mobile phones. To make NHS test and trace as effective as possible, it is very important that everyone with symptoms must isolate immediately and go and get a test. Although previously he just said it doesn't matter if you're showing symptoms or not. Make up your mind. I mean, if this is the case, then the test should be sent out free of charge, so people who have been wrongly identified can eliminate themselves from the isolation, as is simply another way of destroying mental health and the economy even more. I think the most sinister thing to come out of Hancock's mouth about this track and trace app is the following. To protect your friends and family, testing and tracing must become a new way of life. A new way of life? Fuck no. We already have the government's conditioning of this new normal, but yet this new normal and this new way of life is one of the biggest infringements on our rights and civil liberties ever seen anywhere. I bet even Hitler wouldn't have used it if he had the technology. Hancock continued, the instructions to people are clear. If you have symptoms, isolate immediately and get a test. If you are contacted by NHS test and trace instructing you to isolate, you must. It is your civic duty, so you avoid unknowingly spreading the virus and you help to break the chain of transmission. This will be voluntary at first because we trust everyone to do the right thing, but we can quickly make it mandatory if that's what it takes. Because if we don't collectively make this work, then the only way forward is to keep the lockdown. But better, the more people who follow the instructions, the safer we will be and the faster we can safely lift the lockdown. Do it for the people you love, do it for the community, do it for the NHS, and do it for all those frontline workers who have done so much and gone out every day to put themselves at risk to keep you and your family safe. Notice the buzzwords, the words used to coerce you into complying. Do it for the people you love. Keep you and your family safe. As if the government are even interested in keeping any one of us safe anyway. If they were, they would have acted months before they did. Frightening stuff. West Midlands police were caught on camera using a baton and pava spray on a crowd who had gathered outside after a house fire in Birmingham. The video also shows police breaking entry to a house which was sheltering the victims of the fire. It said that up to 30 people gathered outside the property as emergency services responded to the fire. One man who lived in the house and who was treated for smoke inhalation can be seen on video being hit on the leg by one of the police constables. Mohammed Hanif, who lives nearby, said it was unreal how the police dealt with it. Residents have said that they had gathered to help a family after the blaze on Hobmore Road and Monica Road on Tuesday. Mr. Hanif said people gathered to help the family whose house was ablaze, but there was no aggression. He said it's just unreal how the police dealt with it. If they had spoken to us and told us to move along, but the thing was we were outside our house. We were there because we were helping out the neighbours. We weren't thinking about breaking the law around social distancing, he said. West Midlands police did confirm that they used pava spray in an attempt to disperse the crowd of 20 to 30 people, although the force spokeswoman added that the situation turned hostile and 3 officers were assaulted, resulting in minor injuries. A 28-year-old man was arrested on suspicion of assaulting an emergency worker, but was released under investigation. The Independent Office for Police Conduct confirmed that it had not yet received a referral over the incident. West Midlands Police added the incident is now being investigated by their force CID and is also being assessed by the force's Professional Standards Department, who are examining body-worn video and mobile phone footage. Now, I've got to say, after watching the video, even though the police used the baton, he did it striking the leg, which is what they're taught to do. I can't say I saw any real aggressiveness from the crowd, however. I have been in a situation where I've been outnumbered by people shouting, moving around and making me feel uncomfortable and fear for my safety. But then I'm not police and I've not been taught how to deal with those situations, and I've not had weapons to protect me or to intimidate people. I think the use of pava was over the top. The baton strike, I can't really say because it's dark, blurry, and I can't really make out what's being said, although it looked to me like it was a warning strike rather than one made to do damage, which still may have been uncalled for. But I have to be honest with you based on what I can see. The forcing entry to the property where the neighbour had sheltered the occupants of the house that was on fire was over the top, and overall the police could have been more understanding. After all, people had just been burnt out of their home. But I have to say the crowd could have been calmer as well. The police service of Northern Ireland seemed to have been able to find a reasonable way to deal with coronavirus lockdown fines. I have to say that all things considered, this really seems to be something that makes good sense and should certainly be something that other forces start to do. The number of fines issued by police in Northern Ireland over social distancing rules dropped from nearly 400 a month to just 30 in a month, even though the rules in Northern Ireland are still stricter than our own here in England. On April 24th, Assistant Chief Constable Alan Todd revealed that the police had issued 374 fines and 615 community resolution notices. He said the approach of police was engaging with people, explaining the regulations and encouraging them to follow them before turning to enforcement as a last resort. However, the high number of fines reportedly led Mr. Todd to instruct police to seek approval of a senior colleague before issuing penalties. In an email to staff, he described the measure as a short-term quality assurance and reporting measure, which I have to say sounds like the best course of action that any of the forces have taken. Ulster Unionist MLA Doug Beattie said the legislation had not been as clear as it should have been for police officers to enact. He added, but it's the devil they do, the devil they don't for police. They were criticised for giving out fines. They would be criticised if they stopped. I will say begrudgingly that this has to be the best use of common sense that I've seen from any of the police forces. And I would hope that police here in England consider the same procedure, as it eliminates personal feelings of the police who addition finds out completely, considering that what they're trying to enforce isn't criminal, which of course is easier to establish than breaking a rule or advice. So it makes perfect sense to have a second opinion, as this will also reduce the amount of police who genuinely are dishing them out to teach people a lesson, rather than because they've broken a rule. What do you think? Do you think that the fixed penalty notices should have a second opinion before being issued? Let me know in the comments. An elderly man in Kettering town centre was spoken to by Northamptonshire police on Tuesday after police received calls about his behaviour. Police were deployed to the high street just before 3 p.m. after reports the man was taking photos of children. Police tweeted, "Today, Kettering police received calls of a male taking photos of young children in High Street. Nearby officers were on the scene in seconds. The male was dealt with robustly, with the children and their family's safety paramount, thanks to all who called this in." A police spokesman said, "We deployed and spoke to a man in his 80s about his behaviour and explained that it was rightly concerning parents. He agreed to stop." Now, I want to point out before people jump on this, people taking pictures in public generally isn't against the law, even if children appear in those images. It only becomes an offence if those images are of an indecent nature. I'm pretty sure the police in this instance asked to see the images that the man had taken, and as they let him go, he clearly didn't have anything of an indecent nature. I understand that some people don't know the law surrounding public photography, and I also understand how that some horrible people out there will try anything to get their kicks. But what concerns me is some people's overreactions. I'm not saying for a moment that calling the police was an overreaction, if it appeared that he was concentrating his efforts on filming children. What is an overreaction, in my opinion, is the fact that even after the police let him go, meaning he had done nothing wrong, people started sharing his image on social media groups, which for a man in his 80s, who may very well be an amateur photographer doing no harm, could be incredibly dangerous. Humberside police made a visit to a home in North Hull after local residents created a scarecrow walk. I'm assuming, as I can't find a real definition for what this means, that it's simply putting scarecrows up reflecting famous people or other well-known people as an effigy in their front gardens for people to look at as they wander around. Well, Stephen and Teresa Sainer decided to create their effigy of Michael Jackson. Nothing wrong with that, you might say. After all, he is one of the most famous people in pop history. But you'd be wrong. In fact, days after the community set up their scarecrow effigies, police attended Stephen and Teresa's home with a warning to remove it. Mr. Sainer said, "I can't believe it. The world has gone mad. What's annoying is the police can find the time to knock on the door about a scarecrow, and they've got all this crime going on. Have they got nothing better to do?" Now, you might think that the police attended because of the potential for racism accusations over the fact that there was a black face, but that appears to not quite be why they attended anyway. In fact, Teresa Sainer said, "I said I could change the colour of the face if that would make it better." She, the policewoman, said, "No, it's not that. It's the whole Michael Jackson thing and the red PVC suit." She said, "I explained it's the actual Thriller suit. There was a sign underneath that said Thriller." She said, "No, we need it removing." We were annoyed because everyone in the area had been laughing and joking about it. We took time and effort to do it for the kids. The Scarecrow Walk had been set up by local community group Ghost Estate Compass. The group's organiser, Mark Robinson, has backed the couple and said, "I started a Scarecrow Walk off last week. I presented it to the community and this couple took the idea on board and it snowballed. Somebody has just got offended and called the police just to stir something, which has really got the community sticking together even more. We'd like them to come forward and have a chat with us and tell us why they found it offensive, and we can talk it through, because there might be a situation in the future where this could happen again, and we don't want that. We want to bring the community together, not to cause friction." A Humberside police spokesperson said, "We understand that, especially at this time, people are coming together and are wanting to bring light-hearted relief to their communities. On Saturday, May 23rd, we did receive a complaint from a local resident who reported they had been offended by a scarecrow on display in a front garden on Compass Road in Hull. But, of course, this kind of thing's just fine, isn't it? Because the police certainly wouldn't do anything about that if it offended somebody. Very big thank you to channel Patreon supporters. Your support is truly appreciated. And that's all I have for you today. Please like, share, comment and subscribe. Of course, let me know your thoughts, as I know many of you will. And until next time, stay safe, look after each other, film the police and other officials. Good night, all. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. If you like the content and you'd like to help support the channel, you can do so. In the description of every video there are some links to ways that you're able to help support the channel so I can continue putting out content. If you're unable to help us in that way, hit that subscribe button up the top there. If you haven't already, become a subscriber. That is support enough. Share the videos, comment, like, it all helps. If you're looking for something else to watch, up top there is my latest video. Down the bottom there is a video that YouTube recommends for you.